Ethan, man, I'm trying to make the comeback in fantasy, and then I go and shoot myself in the foot by playing people that aren't even on the start line. And I'm not even looking at the start list before I play them. I'm just letting it rip willy-nilly, and they're not gaining points because they're not even racing. So
I think that's all you, man. That's your first mistake is not looking at the start list. That's the most important thing in fantasy biathlon is picking people that at least start.
All right, I'm learning from the master now. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Another awesome week of racing, and Hochfilzen is behind us now, and we had some pretty entertaining races, Ethan. What did you think just in general about Hochfilzen this weekend?
I thought it was a really fun weekend. I think everyone kind of got their like beginning of season jitters out in Kontiolahti. We kind of got to see a little bit more, not like classic biathlon, but a little less randomness, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But we still had a little, some instances here and there that we're going to talk about today. But it was a really fun weekend of biathlon to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was. I totally agree with you. It was. People got the nerves out of the way in Kontiolahti. We got a little bit more of what we expected in terms of performances from some of our superstars. We'll dive into it, but seems like Johannes Tingesbo is back, and we have a pretty clear favorite emerging on the women's side. So, what do you say we dive into it with our first hit here?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, so first of all, we got to talk about Slovenia. Speaking about, showing up in the relay. First, the women fourth, really out of nowhere. And then just hours later, the men back it up in fourth place in the relay. I mean, I think, in my opinion, Slovenia is a good team and they have a ton of talent. And actually, I think they also have a lot of young talent as well. But I didn't see either of their teams coming in fourth. Maybe if they put their best talent together in a mixed relay or a single mixed relay, I could see how it's like possible. But both of their relay teams coming in fourth, and just an awesome day for the Slovenian team.
Yeah, it's always fun to see, one of the smaller nations that typically doesn't have a ton of success in the relays be up towards the top for the whole race. And for a nation to do it in the women's race and then come back and do it in the men's race, like you said, a couple hours later in the same day, it was super awesome to see. And this just shows the importance of being disciplined on the range and hitting your targets. Like you said, Slovenia has a ton of talent and a lot of younger athletes. They do have, their superstars in Fak and Lampic who can, have a good race any given day. Well, Lampic, if she shoots well, can have a good race any day. But if you hit the targets in a relay and don't have to use a ton of spare rounds, and the teams around you are kind of struggling a little bit on the range. There's a lot of 10s and 13s and penalty loops in these races. They both the women's and men's teams went 0+6, and kind of seems like that's the key to a good relay is shooting well, or at least a good place to start.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because when you look at Lampic's performances over the years, like I think she kind of made or broke this relay for Slovenia. She had the fastest leg time on leg 3. And I mean, look at her shooting right now. It's actually going down over the years, particularly her standing, shooting 43% this year. But it's crazy, when she started, she was a 76% shooter, and now it's 63 this season. I mean, obviously tons of season left to go. But the fact that she was able to have this absolutely insane skiing, and she is by far the fastest skier still, and put it together with a clean prone stage. And then what did she use? Like 2 spares or something in standing, and was able to really, put the team on her back. I think Slovenia is going to need a lot more of this if they're going to keep up these fourth places on the season. But and then going over the men's side, Fack. I mean, I feel like we don't talk about him too much because he obviously is a little bit over the hill. He's 37 years old, so well within the silver bib category. But yeah, he's got some young teammates, and like shooting 93%. I mean, that's what you got to do at your age with that experience. And his skiing's not dropping off too much. I mean, he's still ahead of the curve when it comes to skiing. We know that he's placing, I think overall right now, he's in the top 15 or top 20, which is golden for a guy like Fack, who's 37. Overall, I think, I would say, I don't know if you can call Lampich a leader, definitely a performance leader, but you had people step up where it counted. And also we got to give, or I want to give a shout out to Klemencic on the last leg, shooting 0+0, because we see this all the time. Maybe there's a small nation that's in fighting for the podium or fourth place or something, and then they hand off to the last leg. Maybe all their superstars already went, and that's why they're in fourth place. But when you're up against the likes of Julius Simon or Elvira Oberg or any of the favorites, and then you have this person who's just kind of hanging on for dear life, you kind of see them fall back in the order. Not going to point fingers, but we saw that from Bulgaria in the women's relay. But the fact that Klemencic was able to hang on, shoot 0-0, finish in fourth, and unfortunately there's nothing she could have done against the favorites that were up there with her. So really good for her. And also same thing with the men. I forget who anchored for them. I think it was Polanco. Polanco. Same thing for Polanco. I mean, going up against Sebastian Samuelsson, good luck hanging on, dude. But he finished right there, 5 seconds behind him at the finish line. So, super, super exciting for a small nation to get up there and show the rest of the small nations that it can be done. You can be within 5 seconds of the podium. Miracles do happen.
Yeah, most of these smaller nations, they have, like you said, one or two kind of superstars, and the whole success of the relay kind of rides on the other, 1 to 2 to 3 athletes on the team. And if they have a really good day, the whole team, if the superstars put it together and the rest of the team puts it together, we could see a lot more of these kind of, surprise performances from smaller nations, which would be super awesome to see. But I think the shooting scores of the rest of the bigger nations in the relays was definitely subpar in this one for sure.
Yeah, and it seems like it's been like that all season. And I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about relays later on too, because we got to talk about the front of the relays, Germany and France. But it seems like in general, the shooting's been a little down in relays this year, and I don't know what's up with that. But okay. But yeah, congrats to Team Slovenia. You guys definitely deserve a little party this Christmas break. Hopefully you can stay focused through Le Grand Bernat. But, hopefully they don't come out swinging in Le Grand Bernat and just think that they're tough stuff now, and they just absolutely everyone misses the pursuit or something. That would be terrible. Don't get cocky. All right. So speaking of the relay, Ethan, we had some pretty tough performances in the relay, and not even just bad shooting, but the types of moments where you're just kind of holding your breath as a fan and you're like, come on, do something. And I'm talking about Lehtinen from Finland. She shot standing in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Just at that time, you could have just shot in 40 seconds and had enough time for 2 penalty loops, basically. So, and then just the next leg, they had Gro Randby from Norway shot 1:24, a minute and 24, and she had 2 misses. So she took forever and then also had 2 misses. So it's those kind of performances where you're just sitting there like, oh my God, this is painful to watch. You can see the barrel moving. I was curious, do you have any experiences like that in your biathlon career, or even just in training or anything like that? Because I have a pretty funny story that's related to this.
I don't know if I have any specific instances, but I could definitely think of a couple moments where, you come into the last standing and your legs are just like shaking. You can't seem to calm yourself down, and it's either like super windy or raining or snowing. And it seems like everything that could go wrong is going wrong at the same time, and you're just like mentally you can't put it together, especially if you're kind of a younger athlete learning how to deal with different conditions and the feeling of like bonking or bonking during a race. Yeah, my coach growing up always told me if you're gonna miss, you might as well miss fast. And if you know it might not go well, just get the bullets down range and then go ski your pony loops. Maybe you get lucky and hit 2 or 3 or 4, but it's so painful to watch the athletes stand there forever and forever and forever, and your confidence just tanks the longer they keep standing there.
Yeah,
especially when you can see the close up with the barrel moving around so much. Like, you feel for them and you understand how hard biathlon is in that moment right there.
yeah. So when I was a junior, we went up to Quebec for a training camp, and we were training with JP Legalec, who is this Canadian biathlete from back in like the 2014 Sochi era biathlon. And I think it was at either Sochi or Pyeongchang. I forget, like the year before was the Olympics. He was winning the Olympic pursuit, I believe it was, like going to be the Olympic champion. The only thing that held him back was that he crashed on this last lap. He got passed by like 3 people, ended up coming in 4th or something. So, but in all regards, like he was about to be Olympic champion. And like in my mind, that's what he was. He was Olympic champion. And we're at this training camp with him, and we're doing range loops. And my roller skis broke, so I was using a pair of loaner skis that just had the absolute fastest wheels that you've ever seen on them. Like I did one pull and I was just gone. And it was like sketchy because I didn't really know how to control these skis. And so we're doing these range loops, a little mass start competition. It's all for fun, just for training. But on the first lap, my skis are so fast that I just zip right to the front. And he gives me this look of like, who the hell are you going in front of me? And I give him the look of, I am sorry, I cannot control these skis. And we come into the first shooting stage. I'm in lane 1. He's in lane 2. I can hear my coach say something like, what are you doing in lane 1? And that was the hardest shooting stage of my life. I could see, like, it wasn't my pulse. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't anything. It was just, I could see my barrel shaking like crazy. And I shot, I don't think I hit a single target. And like having that experience of just being so nervous, but also like not wanting to let anyone down. Cause I'm like, well, if I'm going to be in lane 1, I got to perform here. Like I can't get out of here with 4 misses. And sure enough, I left with 4 misses. But yeah, it's just, it's small experiences like that where it's like every biathlete is going to go through it at some point. And unfortunately, you kind of just have to have those experiences. Hopefully it's in training. Hopefully it's not in a race. I mean, I've had similar experiences in racing as well, but I don't know. My best advice as a coach for an athlete in that situation, especially in standing, is just really focus on the trigger. Bring it back to something that you can really control, because a lot of times in my experience, what happens is athletes they go into hunting mode and they're trying to find the target, but the rifle and the barrel are shaking so much you can't control it. You're trying to, once you come to one spot, it seems like the target just moves, and then you go to another spot and the target moves again. In those instances, just bring it back internal. Really focus on the trigger, and when you see that black, like you said, just pull it. Just pull it, because as we saw for Leighton, at least she actually hit the target. I mean, she did go clean after 220. Unfortunately for Ranby, she did have 2 misses. But with those 2 penalty loops, I bet with those 2 penalty loops, she got out of the range quicker than Leighton. And actually, real quick, I could probably pull up the range times and see actually who did have the slowest one. But let's see here. Leighton was lane 3. So I don't know. While I look this up, if you have anything else that you want to impart on the biathlon community.
Let's see. And then going back to your point about, not trying to overthink it, think about one thing at a time, focus on that one specific thing. I think like working with you as a coach, that was something that really helped me. Was if you focus on one thing, everything else is kind of just muscle memory and you don't have to think about it. And then it kind of just happens without you having to, try to think about every little detail, every little thing. How, are your shoulders relaxed? How's your sight picture? Are you're breathing the right way? Just focus on one thing, simple it down. There's this saying like keep it simple, stupid. You can only think about so much, especially if you're going to be there on the mat for, ideally less than 30 seconds, but sometimes upwards of a minute. But trying to keep it simple. And these athletes have so much going on in every race, and there's so much pressure in every moment that, there's going to be moments like this for, almost every athlete, I can guarantee.
Yeah. So look at this. Gro Ranby had 2 misses and her range time, and this is from when she entered by lane 30, did the penalty loops, and then left, was 3:06. So she had that terrible shooting time, did the 2 penalty loops, 3:06. Here's Lehtinen, range time, 3:57 clean. 3:57 clean. So she took extra time to hit the targets, where it's just like at some point, just pull the trigger and get through it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now we're breeding a generation of kids who are gonna shoot in like 10 seconds and be like, oh no, I heard on a podcast just to let it fly.
But if they hit them all, they're gonna look really cool.
That's the Jacqueline strategy.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here. All right, Ethan. I think Franziska Preuss is for real here. Our current yellow bib and just like looking strong. And I don't know why, but I'm not sold by her. I look at other athletes like Breza Boucher and Tandervold and I mean Tandervold's not racing, but like Julia Simone, and they just seem to me in my mind, they just seem like they are overall winners. And I'm just not sold by Preuss yet, but she's legit. She not only did she earn the yellow bib, but she freaking won a race with the yellow bib. I mean, Elvira Oberg did that in Contilati, but still that's a big like middle finger to not a middle finger. That's a big like, yeah, I earned this type of move, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just her performance in the relay too. I mean, Germany, we're going to talk about the relay a little later. She gets handed off to in first place against some really, really strong competition and is able to seal the deal. So I don't know. I think Franziska Preuss is for real.
I totally agree. And coming into this weekend, I think she only had like 1, maybe 2 wins in her whole career, which really surprised me considering she's been at the top of the sport for, so long. But right now, what's surprising to me is that not only is she shooting exceptionally well in prone at about 97%, she's always been a good shot, especially in prone, as you can see with the trends, always up in the 90%. But her ski speed is faster than it ever has been so far this season.
That's insane.
And which is crazy considering she's, how old is she, 30 years old? She feels like she's been doing biathlon forever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just like peaking at the beginning of the season, or just, taking a little easier coming into the year, not having to compete super hard in, team trial events. But I mean, if she keeps skiing faster than she ever has and keeps hitting the targets like she always does, and she might not have that, like wow factor or like insane ski speed or super duper fast shooting that we see from some of the other athletes, but she does everything right. She doesn't, really put a foot wrong anywhere so far this season.
Yeah. She's like, I was trying to figure out like what's going on with her. And I mean, we know that she's been plagued with injury and with illness, but if you take a look at her career here, I mean, she's done about 12 seasons on the World Cup. And I'm going to say there's like a good 4 of them that are full seasons. 3. And then like you could also count maybe this one, 18 out of 20, a couple 17 out of 20s. But like so much of her career has been sidelined due to injury that it's so hard to get a read on how she is as a biathlete. As a youngster, she's got some medals from Junior Worlds, a couple medals at the World Champs too. But it's just so like I almost feel like when I think of great German biathletes, you do think of Dahlmeyers, who was racing in this era. Through here, you think of Denise Herman-Vick, who's racing in this era. And Preuss has always been very competitive against, other athletes when she is racing, but it's just been, she hasn't had the full season of racing. I mean, it's kind of hard to see this, but if you look at all the red dots, like that's where she actually placed in the race. And there's so many in the top 10, like tons of performances in the top 10. Sure. Smattering of poor performances that happens, but, yeah, it's just like you don't think of Preuss, and then now with the new generation coming up, all her teammates are like under 20 or under 22 or something like that. With the new generation coming up, it seems like already just been like, oh, who's coming next? Look at Tannheimer, look at Grosjean, like look at the next generation. But Preuss just does the job. She just gets the work done. She hits the targets. She's skiing fast. This is this is the for women. Here's the skiing stats for this season. She's definitely put herself as the 4th fastest skier of the year, which it's kind of crazy. I want to go back and take a look to see how many times she's been ranked 4th for fastest skiers on the season, or in the top 5 even. But like I consider Brezard, Boucher, and Oberg just dominant skiers, and Preuss is right there. I guess if we look at the chart here, where is she? Okay, so she has a little bit of a gap to those top 3, but she's leading everyone else. So, yeah, I don't know. I think like, we're talking about all these injuries. Now another one coming out. Davidova is out for Le Grand Bernard with some back issues. Like it's almost, I'm trying to think of the joke here, but it's like, it's almost ironic that poor Preuss has been just sidelined with crap her entire career. And now this season, it seems like everyone else in the field is getting sidelined with crap, and it's leaving the door open for Preuss. But with the injuries, jokes aside, with the injuries, like the door is 100% open for Preuss right now to take the overall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. I think all she needs is a good weekend in Le Grand Bonnat and then continue it through the next trimester. And she doesn't have to win every single race, especially in the women's field. We could have, out of the however many races they do, like 10 to 15 different winners. Although with the superstars that are currently out injured, that numbers are going to be a little smaller. But if Preuss just continues to have good races on the podium, top 5s, like we saw this week, Elvira crushed it in Conti-Lati, and then had a bad race in the sprint, and then that set her back pretty far for the pursuit. And everyone's going to be subject to a bad race now and then. But I think on the women's side, whoever wins the overall isn't going to win every single race, like we see with Johannes and the men's. They just have to have the least amount of bad races.
Yeah,
and I think Preuss right now is showing us that she has all the tools to do that. From the start of the season. If that continues, I don't think, Jean Monod and Oberg and, Voigt is, I say right there, but she's a good amount of points back. But they would have to kind of win out for a whole weekend to even kind of like catch up, assuming Preuss continues to have good, podium top 5 type races.
Yeah. I mean, and like Simone definitely came alive here, 6th place in the pursuit. But I mean, talk about, you got to limit the bad races. I mean, first of all, she didn't even earn any points in this sprint in Conti-Lati, and then poor poor performance. If you're trying to win the overall, 17th is great. But if you're trying to win the overall, 17th is not good enough. And yeah, it's just about consistency. Preuss has been in the top 10 every single race. And then even look at this. This is what you're talking about. Oberg was podium every single race in Kontiolahti. Just a bad sprint in Hochfilzen, 25th place, and boom, she dropped down the order. So, yeah, we're going to see what happens. And it's actually interesting because when I look at these top three women, Preuss, Jean-Monod, and Oberg, I think that Oberg has, she's the most risky, I would say. It's her shooting that freaks me out a little bit. I think she can be the overall winner, but she's really got to dial in that shooting if she's going to win it. So for that reason, I think she's primed for a couple more like 25th places, a random, like potentially out of the points type race. So that's not going to win it. So now I think it becomes between Preuss and Jean-Monod. Both of them are pretty dang good athletes. And they're both skiing very similarly. They're both shooting very similarly. So I think it's going to be a pretty fun fight down the home stretch here. Hopefully, Jean-Monod has this 17 in Kontiolahti. Hopefully that's the worst for her and she can get back to being competitive with Preuss. But, we do have, let's say, home field disadvantage coming up. We'll see how she does when she comes to Le Grand Bernard. If she can get through Le Grand Bernard with top 10s, and let's say Preuss takes the yellow and she, moves into the second trimester with the yellow bib, but Jean-Monod gets through Le Grand Bernard with top 10s and can stay competitive, I think the advantage shifts towards Jean-Monod. But if Jean-Monod cracks under the home pressure, the home fans, whatever, and she has another 17th in the sprint, for example, like not a bad performance, but just not good enough. I think advantage Preuss, even with the Oberhof and the Ruhpolding stages coming up, because I think you don't see the Germans perform too poorly in Germany, whereas you can see some of the other nations when they do go to home snow. Sometimes it can be tough to compete in front of the home crowd. So, I think it's going to be interesting. It looks like we got two. It's so crazy because at the beginning of the season we were talking like, oh, it could be Vitozzi, it could be Tanderveld, it could be Oberg, it could have been Preuss, it could be Jean-Monod, it could be Simone, it could be like you could have named 10 women that could have won the overall, and now we're 2 weekends into the season, and it's pretty clearly going to be, I think, down to 2 women, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's going to be super fun to watch, the women's field shake out. But to the point of the home races, yes, Germany has the Oberhof and Ruhpolding World Cups, but watching the races in Antolz, there's a lot of German fans there. I mean, sorry, not Antolz, but this weekend in Hochfilzen, there's a lot of German fans.
Yeah.
In Antolz, they talk about too, it almost feels like a home World Cup just because it's so close to Germany and the fans travel so well.
Yeah.
I think that helps them kind of handle the pressure when they do get to race in Germany in Oberhof and Ruhpolding. It doesn't totally feel like there's all this, outside media, now that they're at home. Whereas for the French athletes, when they go to Le Grand Bonnat, it's like they're world champs every single year for the French fans and the French media and the TV and all that stuff. And there's a lot of things outside of just racing that come with that.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Germans might have a little bit more experience when it comes to that.
That's a really good point. And that's probably why they don't do so poorly when they go to Ruhpolding and Oberhof, is because everywhere they go, there's German fans. So yeah, interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we go over to the men's side here. Norway, this is actually going to be really interesting. Talking about interesting races. In the sprint, it kind of looked like it was the Norwegian show again. I mean, wasn't super dominant in Kontiolahti, and then suddenly they have 6 or 5 in the top 7. They have 4 in the top 5. Only Fabian Cloud can break up the sweep. and you're like, oh, Norway's back. Johannes Tingesbo is back, one miss, and absolutely dominates. Actually does not crush on the skis. Emilian Jacquelin crushed on the skis. But still, just, okay, Norway's back. And then we fast forward to the relay, and France goes up 2-0. This is pretty awesome. I love that the French boys are showing up for the relay, because I think it's making it super exciting. And I have a confession to make, but I have actually never really been a fan of the relay, because I feel like it's not fair. There's like a couple of major teams that are gonna win. There's few teams, we all know who they are, that have the depth. Some teams don't have that depth. But this year, the relay has been super exciting. I mean, the German women winning the women's relay was super exciting over France, which I think we all had as clear favorite. But then on the men's side, now you got France going up 2-0 against Norway, who is definitely the clear favorite. It's just been super, super fun to watch the relays, in my opinion. I don't know. It's just, what do you have to say about like the battle between France and Norway now?
I think it's super exciting. In previous years, we've had the Norwegians dominate, the individual races, sprints, pursuits, mass starts, whatever, and then also dominate the relays as well. But to kind of have a balance now, where it's a little friendly competition between the two of them, like we see that they're clearly the two best teams on the men's side right now, and to have Johannes is kind of back this weekend. The Norwegians aren't, it's not the typical names that are making up the top four Norwegians in the overall. Like Tarjei Bo is down in 11th and Christensen is in 13th. And so they're racing Sorum or Stransheim and in the relays, and they're the athletes that don't quite have as much experience in the relays. And I think we saw that with Sorum on the anchor leg, where he kind of cracked a little bit, and Jacquelin doesn't need much of anyone to crack to be able to have a shot at taking the lead. And hats off to Jacquelin this year for kind of putting it together, it seems like, so far. And being third in the overall is awesome. Not what I would have expected from him at the beginning of the year, but it's a fun little friendly rivalry between the Norwegian and the French that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Jacquelin's shooting really, really well right now. We know that's a little bit risky for him. Not the best of his career, believe it or not, but skiing super well. But yeah, I think it's, I was just looking at the isolated pursuit times, and I mean, all of this rivalry between Norway and France really came to a head in the pursuit, and was really like, there's almost like this metaphoric, incident, so to speak, between Bo and Jacquelin, and it was 100% Jacquelin's fault. He just put the pull in front of his leg, and it's too bad that we couldn't see a sprint to the finish, because I really think Jacquelin had the win, and I think he knows that too, because he's taken to use a baseball reference, Jacquelin's taken Bo deep before, so I think he had his number, and it's just too bad that that was the race incident as it was determined. And but yeah, I think it just sets the stage for the excitement that's coming up. And you had Jacquelin get smoked by Sorum in the mixed relay, I believe it was, or single mixed in Kontiolahti. So there's definitely a storyline brewing here. And look, I was just looking at the isolated pursuit times from Hochfilzen, and Jacquelin, despite the fall, still had the best isolated pursuit time. And he beat out actually Ligrid, who was second, and then Bo was third, Christensen 4, Tarjei was 5. So yeah, Norway, like, definitely. Did Norway drop the ball, or did France clutch it in the relay?
I think with kind of the expectation we have of Norway, I think they've kind of been dropping the ball a little bit in the relays. France in previous years has kind of been hanging on with them for the first or second legs, but then Norway just kind of slowly pulls ahead. France might have a penalty loop or some more spare rounds than Norway, but they've been kind of handing it to Norway in the relays. It seems like they've been skiing faster. They've been hitting more targets. I mean, if you're in Norway, I feel like they're kind of scratching their heads right now and maybe shake up the order of who's going when, what athletes are getting the relays. Like, does Johannes have to go last now instead of third? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's really cool to see this back and forth. I mean, okay, Sorum did end up having the penalty loop, which is unfortunate, but I think like he was already in second place by the time he had that penalty loop. It's not like he lost the race because he had the penalty loop. I think, yeah, Jacqueline definitely clutched it up and then put the pressure on, and that's why he ended up having. I mean, and what can you do in that situation if you're Sorum? You're head to head. The guy next to you is shooting fast. You gotta go. You know, you can't be taking your time. So yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be fun. Our next relay is probably we got a mixed relay in Oberhof, but then we actually have a men's relay in Ruhpolding, and then another men's relay in Antholz. So yeah, a couple more relays after Christmas, but the Nations Cup is still 100% up for grabs here. So we'll see how that goes. Just pulling up the Nations Cup real quick. And Norway is in the lead for men, but just barely. Like, this is negligible. Just barely. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting as everything progresses. All right. So this shot is kind of like two shots, but I think I'm curious to get your take on this. I saw this on Facebook from two different Facebook groups because I try to be part of every biathlon Facebook group that I can be because I just want to get the reaction and the feeling from the fans. But the question now is, who does Norway bring to Le Grand Bernard for men? Because they announced before the season that they're just going straight off results. They're going, if you were the worst performer in this World Cup, you're down. The best performer from the IBU Cup is up. And they just have too much depth to not go that way. I mean, the worst performer probably was Christensen. Maybe it was Tarjei Bo. I think you have to kind of go through and do the math to see who was actually the worst. Uldal crushed. I mean, he was like 7th and 6th place like every race. So it's really hard to justify putting him back down to the IBU Cup. So let's discuss that. But also on the women's side, for France actually has a ton of depth right now. They're crushing it on the IBU Cup, and the question also arose: who do you bring for the French women? So let's go back to the men. We'll start there. You have 6 start spots, Ethan, and you're the Norwegian coach. Who are you bringing to Le Grand Bernard?
I mean, obviously, Johannes, Lygrid. I think Stransheim and Sorum are, have their tickets booked already because they're both in the top 8 of the overall. I think you have to keep Uldal on there.
Really?
I mean, he was the 3rd or 4th best Norwegian this weekend in his first World Cup races of the year, getting called up from the IBU Cup. So maybe you could say it was a best case scenario, but it's not like he crushed it in the sprint and then blew up in the pursuit. Like, he backed it up and was kind of like duking it out with Samuelson the whole time. And I was just kind of waiting for him to fall off, crack a little bit, but kind of stayed right there with Samuelson, which was really impressive. And I think Christensen is, like you said, definitely the one in the hot seat right now. And if they're going based off what they have said in terms of results from every weekend, the lowest gets sent down. Like, that's clearly Christensen, in my opinion, from this weekend. But do you bring Dale back up? Do you bring Botten up? Like, who are you bringing up to replace him when Christensen has been, one of the anchors and the staples of this Norwegian team for the past couple of years?
I know, and I mean that's a tough look if you're Dale, Christensen, even Tarjei. Like getting sent to the IBU Cup is rough, but like it's, I mean, just based on points earned on this World Cup. Let's see if I can. Here we go. So just, I mean, based on just points earned, I mean, Tarjei 17 points and 31 points. Yeah. And so that was definitely better than Christian's 1 point for coming in 39th or 40th in the sprint. He did have a really good pursuit, but just was not able to earn good enough points. But then, you look down here at Uldal, he's only got 2 races. He's got 91 points, which is way higher than both of these guys. So, man, I don't know. Like, I think I like the team that you named there. I like, unfortunately, sending Christensen down, and then you have Christensen, Dale, Isak Frey, Sivert Bakken is back on the IBU Cup. Who's a couple other names that people would know, like Mats Overby. I think you put, unfortunately, you got to put Dale and Christensen up against those guys on the IBU Cup, and then from there, hopefully it can also just shake out a little bit smoother where it's, okay, bad one, go down, good one, go up. Unfortunately, I think Tarjei Bo is next on the chopping block. And I mean, he's my favorite. I'm not going to lie. He's my favorite. He has been since I was a kid. And seeing him in this hot seat, it breaks my heart a little bit. I kind of want to be like, dude, you should have retired last year, man. I mean, hey, there's still a chance. I'm just saying, I think he wants to try to go to the Olympics next year, but I mean, you could go home for Christmas and then announce in January, my family and I talked it over. We decided we're going to retire effective immediately. And that would make a lot of people, I think that would make a lot of people happy. Of course, he doesn't have his sort of farewell tour where everyone gets to say goodbye to him because he's such a friendly character that I'm sure a lot of people would miss if he just didn't show up after Christmas. But it's so tough seeing him in the hot seat, and you just kind of wish you were like, dude, last year you finished second overall at, how old is he? Like 37 or no, he's not that old, but 36. Oh, so yeah, he is almost 37. He finished second overall at 36. You could have just been like, dude, just hang it up, man. Is it going to get any better than that? Because right now you're looking like you're going to the IBU Cup if you don't. And it's not like you didn't know this was coming. I mean, Norway has been so deep the last couple seasons, but it's tough. But I like the team that you named. I think you got to keep Uldal up there. And I mean, if you're going to keep Uldal up there, I think that means Isak Frey is coming next because Isak and Uldal were going head to head at the IBU Cup in the first two races, the first 2 weekends. And those guys are strong, man. They are so strong. And it just, I feel for them having to be stuck on the IBU Cup, so to speak. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. There was also, I saw a rumor or a report that basically Uldal already told the media that when he was selected for Hochfilzen, he told the media that they told him he's only coming for Hochfilzen and going back down to Obertiliac is coming up this weekend. So we'll see if they hold to that. But with his 2 basically flower ceremony performances, I think he had, we'll see if that changes or anything. But we'll see. Glad I'm not in charge of making this decision because at least, I mean, maybe it's different in Norway, but at least in the US, like this is so hard to make this decision because there's so much discretion involved. In Norway, maybe you can get away with a little bit more of like, nope, this is what we're doing, and everyone just has to deal with it. So, but okay, let's go over to the women's side. I saw the same question basically for the women. You have 6 start spots for France. Who do you bring to the Grand Bernat? Because, and we didn't even talk about this, but Janine Richard actually did she get disqualified or like she basically broke the rule. She fired 6 shots in the sprint, I believe it was, in one of the shooting stages, and the jury decided that there was no advantage for this, which kind of blows my mind because I'm like, that's a pretty clear safety violation. And regardless of whether or not she had an advantage or not, I think she should have been disqualified. But she's from France, and so she didn't get disqualified, but she was in 35th. So I'm not really sure what the heck happened. I'll have to read more about it, but yeah, people were upset about that because she did break the rule, but no consequences apparently. But yeah, who do you take to Le Grand Bernard for France?
I think the French women's team might be a little not easier than the men's, but they've all kind of been racing on the World Cup so far this year. Oh, did Brian leave? Brian?
Oh, sorry, I'm still here. I just got to change the battery on my camera.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah, like I said, I think the French women's team might be a little easier than the Norwegian men's just because they have all been racing against each other on the World Cup for the past 2 weekends. I think the person who threw a wrench in their decisions was Sophie Chavot getting 2nd and 11th in the sprint pursuit this weekend. But compared to how she did in Conti-Lati, that's a pretty massive improvement. And if you're starting a pursuit 2nd, there's not much room to go up, but there's a lot of opportunity to go down the ranks, and she didn't fall too far, finishing in 11th. But I think these bigger nations that have so much depth have to be so cutthroat and be like, for this weekend, whoever had the worst performances, it's still early in the year, so maybe they can add in a little bit of how Conti-Lati went, but they have to be so cutthroat in deciding who stays up, who goes down to the IBU Cup, because those IBU Cup athletes can throw down any given weekend, like we saw with Oldal. But
yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think the one who's throwing the wrench in the system is Ocean Michelin. But because I mean, in my opinion, I think she's like, okay, she's the number 6 on the team, probably could be on the IBU Cup. Like I kind of equate her more with the IBU Cup squad. But the fact that she's in 11th overall with some fantastic performances so far, these are ranks, not points. So 7th place in Conti-Lati, a couple more top 20s in Hochfilzen. And she's ahead of Justine, who a lot of people had winning the yellow bib at the end of the year. So I think she's the one throwing the wrench in the system. But yeah, I mean, Chavot, 2nd place, you're right, in the sprint really helped her performance as she jumped up a ton after not making or almost not making the pursuit or the mass. Oh, she didn't make the mass start, but just barely getting in the top 60 in the sprint in Conti-Lati. So, okay, who do we have for 6? Obviously, you take Lou, take Julia, you take Justine and Ocean. So that's 4. And then you have 5 and 6, Savo and Richard. I mean, they're pretty clearly up on Gigonot, but Gigonot had a great pursuit. I think she might have had the best isolated pursuit time because she moved up a ton. Okay, so she had the 4th best isolated pursuit time, shooting 1 miss. Like that's impressive, but I think unfortunately not impressive enough. So I guess you take Richard and Chavot, but I also want to see Botte from the IBU Cup come up personally, because she kind of like Isak Fry and Martin Oldal, she's been crushing on the IBU Cup, and she definitely deserves to be on the World Cup. I think not a name. I don't even know if Botte has ever been on the World Cup, if she has any experience. She has 1 race on the World Cup, or 13 races. She appeared in a relay 1 time. So, yeah, a name that not a lot of people know, but I'll share this tab just because we're talking about her. For the IBU Cup this season, look at this. This is just this season right here. 1st, 2nd, 4th. okay, put a bad individual with bad shooting in Geilo, but then first and third again. So she definitely deserves to be on the World Cup if Bulldall is basically doing this and coming in the top 10. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely do not envy the people that have to make these decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's hit our spare here. All right, Ethan, spare round. Who wins the mass start in Le Grand Bernal?
I think for the men, Jacqueline wins.
Whoa.
At home, I know. I think he's shown he can keep it together in races so far this year. And if he's going to win one race out of the whole year, I think he might choose that one at home. And for the women, I think Preuss or Voigt wins the mass start just because they're going to keep it together on the range. And maybe the lights are a little too bright for Jean Monod at home. But yeah, those are my picks.
I don't like Voigt. I don't think she's skiing fast enough. But I could get on board with the Preuss pick. Okay, I'm gonna do for the women. I'm going Julia Simone. I think she's a big game player. She steps up when it counts. And for the men, I do like the Jacqueline pick. Here's how I predict it. I think Jacqueline is going to be leading after like 2 shootings after the prones, and then he's also going to do his textbook, like put in a surge, like attack the third lap, go all out, and like be up by a mile. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to crumble in the stand. And I think that's going to open up the door for Sebastian Samuelson.
Ooh, I like that pick. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll see. Hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everyone listening and watching along. Go check out our clip channel on YouTube where we break up each shot and put it into its own separate video. But yeah, until next time, until the end of the first trimester, we'll thank you for watching and we'll see you.